Now, in order to be thorough, I'll take you through the style that's applied to this page. There's not really a lot here, but I'll tell you why some of these items are existing within the style. So with the body, I'm just giving it some font size and font face, and that's pretty standard fare. The play pause button, the text for play and the text for pause are different lengths. So as you toggle between having those two different words within the button, it kind of changes size a little bit. So I give it an explicit width so that it won't do that. I'm giving dimensions to the video element itself, and then also the scrubber or the timeline that ticks along within that range element underneath the video. I've given that an explicit width of 560 pixels. Now, as far as the scripting is going, I am bringing in jQuery. And the only reason I'm using jQuery is because it makes it easy to handle the page ready event, as well as selecting some of the elements within the DOM and manipulating them. When it comes to the API for the media elements, jQuery is obviously not involved and not required at all. As I'm working with the media elements, I'll be working off the raw DOM element that's selected from the page and not something that's wrapped by the jQuery wrapper. And so that's exactly what I'm doing here. When the page is ready, this function will fire. And the first thing that I'm doing is going to the document, running the query selector, and finding the instance of my video element on the page based off of the ID that I have here. Now, I could have used get element by ID, and that would have worked exactly the same. I just took this opportunity to use one of the new HTML5 selectors so that you can see it within action. So the variable here for video is the raw DOM element for the video that's on the page. And the rest of these variables here are jQuery selectors that return the instance of the DOM element, so then I can manipulate them or I can bind to events. So I have the literal or the span for the remaining time and the total time, the button for play, pause, stop, rewind, begin, end, fast forward, the range slider for the volume, the button for mute, the range slider for the scrubber, and the range slider for the playback rate. Now, as I start rewinding and fast forwarding, I'll need to use this time step, and you'll see that in action in just a moment. So the first piece of implemented functionality is the ability to do a pause or a play. And it's a toggle between the two. Now, like I said before, the media API doesn't have the notion of stopped video or a function that you can call just to stop the video. So as I start looking at the video and I need to decide whether or not I need to play or pause it, I need to look at its state a little bit and find out if the video is paused or it's ended. Those are two states that I can look at. If it's in either one of those states, then I can simply tell it to play. And then from here, I update my button to change the text from saying play to pause, and so the user is updated in that way. And if I need to then pause the video once it's playing, it's just the reverse of that in my if statement, so I can simply say video.pause. And then here I update the text within my button. So let's take a look at the implementation for the stop feature. Now, like I said, the API for the media doesn't include stop. So the way that we'll do that manually is we'll access the media element. In this case, it's just called the video, call pause, and then set the current time equal to 0. Now, that's really all you have to do that's required for the media element itself. I just have a couple other lines here that are basically housekeeping in order to keep the other UI elements up to date on the page. So the button here now will say play since it's been stopped. The video playback rate is set back to 1, and that playback rate value is set to 1 on the slider as well. Now, if I want to be able to jump all the way down to the beginning of the video, this is the button that you saw with the double arrows telling it to go to the beginning of the video. All I have to do is say video.currenttime equals 0. It takes me back to the start, and if the video is playing, it will continue to play from that point. If it's paused or stopped, then it will remain halted in that same time frame. Now, if I want to rewind the video, all I need to do again is update the current time. And so from here, what I'm doing is taking a look at the current time and decrementing it by whatever my time step is. And I have it set up right now for 5, so it'll go back 5 seconds each time we hit the rewind. The same thing for fast forward, except here I'm incrementing by the time step. If I want to jump all the way to the end of the video, I set the current time equal to the video.duration. And duration is part of the metadata information that I have available to me from the element. And then here I'm just updating the text here of the play pause button so that I tell it to play. For affecting the volume, remember this is a slider. So I'm tapping into the onChange event and I'm saying that the video volume needs to be equal to whatever the element is, whatever the value that's coming in from that element. And let's take a look at the HTML one more time to take a look at the volume item. So here I say that the minimum value is 0, the maximum value is 1, and the step is 0.1. So the max value of 1.0 is maximum volume against the element. And so you need to go between 0 and 1 in order to get the incremental values for the volume. Let's go back up here. So that's the volume. We're taking the value from the slider and we're applying it to the video.volume. Now, before I discuss the implementation for the mute button here, let's take a look how that works. So if I play the video and I change the slider here for the volume, but then hit mute, you'll notice how the slider goes all the way down to the bottom. If I hit unmute, then the slider goes back to the previous value that I have. And so that's what's involved with the implementation that we see here. I'm going to take the volume value and set that aside at the beginning so that as I interact with these two controls, I know what to go back to should I unmute the video. So the first thing I'm looking at is to see if the video is muted. And if it's not, then I go to the volume slider and I grab the value and set it aside. And then you can mute the video by using this Boolean property of muted. So I'm just taking the reverse of whatever it is. So it'll mute it if the volume is up, and it will unmute it if it's been muted already. And so then from here, I can just update the other UI elements if I need to. The key to this function here is really this line of whether or not you're turning on the bit of muted or unmuted. So based off the state here, then I can take the volume level and put it back into the slider and then set the mute button text equal to be mute, and then I can do the opposite as well. If the video has been muted, then I set the volume slider to 0 and then change the button text to say unmute. For the video scrubber, if you remember that part of it again, if I play this here, I have this range element here that I can drag along here and it sort of scrubs the video. So in order to implement that functionality, all I need to do is tap into the change event of that range element and grab the value from the slider and set that to the current time of the video. And so whether I'm going forwards or backwards, that allows me the opportunity to change the video's current time based off of the value of the slider. Now the playback rate, if you remember, gave us the speed of the video playback. And it's the same exact idea, so that the playback rate will be the value of whatever the slider is. But if we take a look at the values that we need for the playback rate, you'll notice here that I have the minimum of 1, the initial value of 1, step of 1, and maximum value of 5. Now that maximum value of 5 I just put in there to be a max value. You can go even higher than that, but unlike the volume, this is dealt with whole numbers and you can go even higher than a maximum of 5 in order to affect the playback rate. Now the last part of this demo is the ability to report back to the user where they're at within the time of the video. So if I play here, you can see that it's counting the seconds here, and I have the full length of the video shown up in that area. So these elements here, this script here, is the part that enables that to happen. So I'm looking at the video element and I'm adding an event listener. So I'm looking for the play event. Then when the video is played, what I want to do is take the video duration and format in such a way that it looks nice to the user and set that to the span that's called total time. And I need to call this format time function in order to take the duration value and format it to something that looks good to the user. So it gives me the duration in seconds. And so what I need to do is take that seconds and translate it into something that's what we're used to seeing. So like a minute would be 1:00. And that's exactly what this implementation does. I'm rounding the seconds off, and then I'm taking those seconds, and if I need to do the division in order to find the whole minutes, I take those minutes, calculate them out, and then take the remaining seconds, and then glue all that together and return it up as a result of this function. So I'm doing that for the video duration in order to get the full total time of the video. And then I can also add an event listener for time update. So as the video is playing, every time the current time changes, the time update event will fire. When that event fires, then I can do basically the same type of thing. I grab the current time of the video, I format that time and set it equal to the text property of the span that I have set up for remaining time. And then at the same time, what I can do is update the scrubber so that every time the time updates, I'm grabbing the current time and setting the value on the scrubber so that that scrubber stays in sync with how the video is running. So within this little demo, you've got an opportunity to see the different events that you can tap into and a number of different API members that you can access in order to have full scripting control of your media elements.